I get people ask me all the time, Mike, what is so great about Stephen King? Why do you just like to read about stuff that's going to scare you all the time? And I try to get across to people that there's much more to Stephen King than just the master of horror. I believe that he has a lot of elements in his writing more than just scaring the pants off of you, which he's very, very good at. But he's also good at a great other many things, like the coming of age story, maybe even kicking off the dystopian genre. We'll talk about it here right now. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike here today to talk about Cy King once again. Yes, if this is your first time finding the channel, I am a huge Stephen King fan, as you can probably see behind me. I have done great many videos on King and what he has meant to my life. And the question that I get a lot of the time, besides just why do you like Stephen King so much, is okay, where should I start? The man has a library of novels. Where should I start? And can you give me some books that aren't going to overwhelm me, because a lot of them are the size of mortar bricks? They're huge, they're masonry blocks. So I'm like, okay, I started actually thinking about it, and I've come up with a handful of stories here I think would be good for first-time King readers to kind of jump into. I teased in the intro there that I sometimes think, I was reading dystopian King novels long before it seemed like it became a huge genre like it is now. I think the YA genre has made dystopian like just a go-to. I mean, it's basically, if you're writing a YA novel, you have to have one of two boxes checked. It either has to be dystopian or it has to have vampires. That seems to be the way that it goes now. King did both when it was still awesome, okay? So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to kick it off by talking about The Long Walk. Now, I have this in a collection. What he wrote is Richard Bachman. What he did, and these are always all the kinds of tales. In his own memoir, he talked about being Richard Bachman. I think the best way I could put it to you guys is, I believe personally that I know what his words are, but I believe personally he wanted to challenge himself. He wanted to make sure that his early success wasn't a fluke. So he was writing these other books under a pseudonym. He got Rage, Long Walk, Road Work, The Running Man, and Thinner. And that was after everybody knew who he was, though. But these 4 books were released before anybody knew that it was Stephen King. And but sticking to the book here, The Long Walk is actually a story he wrote when he was in high school and a freshman in college. So he was very, very young, and it was released obviously later after he was a published author. I didn't read this until last year, and I'm sorry, I actually think it was this year. Blown away. Completely blown away. Been a constant reader since I was a young teenager, and King can still find a way to completely blow me away. And you say, what's so great about this book? It's just people walking, and it's freaking riveting. It's riveting. And I have long argued that I felt like Hunger Games was just kind of a rip on Stephen King's The Running Man. And a lot of people always said, yeah, it's kind of Running Man and Long Walk. So now when I read Long Walk, I get it. Yes, it's very hard to see that it is not a riff on those 2 books. And that isn't to take anything away from it, because I can't believe that at this point in my life, reading as much King as I have, that The Long Walk floored me to a point where I said it's a top 10 Stephen King book. It's very easy to read. It's not really that long, especially compared to his other stuff. I mean, they've got 4 books in here, so that tells you how big it was. It's so emotionally powerful in a way that you don't expect, because you connect with these characters knowing that there has to be an unhappy ending for all of them except one. And so you're connected to multiple characters, and you're like, I shouldn't do this because I know what's going to happen. And it's, the last couple pages just wrecked me, man. I mean, it was amazing at this point in my life, read as much King as I have, that for the first time since 11/22/63, one of his books actually moved me to tears. It was that powerful at the end. And it might be different. My wife's really into YA, so I asked her to go read it, and she's like, I liked it, just not to the point that you did. So I don't know. Maybe it was very unpolished. Like I said, he was a teenager when it was written. So it may not be something that a lot of King fans that are used to his prose nowadays can go back to and see how special it was. But I don't know. It connected with me in a really special way. sticking with kind of the shorter story kind of things. Besides, if you don't want to just scare your pants off again, you got to look in different seasons. This is his first short story, or first novellas collection. There's 4 novellas in here. You've probably heard of a couple of them. Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, you heard of that one? Apt Pupil, I think that's very, very fitting to read now with everybody throwing the word Nazi around without even understanding what it means. It's very important that people read now. The Breathing Method is just kind of okay, but the one I kind of want to focus on here is The Body. And if you're a fan of cinema, the one you probably heard the most is Stand By Me. Yes, that is based off of The Body in different seasons by Stephen King. And it is maybe the best coming-of-age tale that you will read. And I don't want to say it's for boys. It is about 4 boys, so I can only attest to what it was like growing up as a boy, before the internet and before smartphones and things like that. So for me, I think it's the best coming-of-age story I've ever read. I don't know, but that's coming from a guy. So I don't want to say it's just for guys, but that's only what I can attest to. But it is moving just as much as anything he's ever written. The movie is basically a almost page-by-page literal adaptation with a couple of things taken out. It's very, very good. And I read it again this January or so. Still spectacular. Just fantastic writing. And you could see that it laid the groundwork for what it would become. And that's also something, obviously, that I love quite a bit. But like I said, I understand if that's something you don't want to start with because that is a monumentally sized book. And this is a very, very good start for you. Actually, this whole collection of the 4 novellas would be very, very good for you to start with. But particularly The Body. And once you've got that, you're going to want to read Shawshank because who doesn't love that movie, right? Now, if you do want to get into some scary stuff here, and you say, I'm looking to get into Stephen King to be scared. Not for stuff that's different. I don't want romance. I don't want dystopia. I don't want coming of age. I want to be scared. I really think that it's different for everybody. There are some people who can't get scared reading a book. They can't find a book immersive enough to find themselves scared while reading it. I pity you if that's the case because to me, reading is all about immersion. If you can't really just envelop yourself in that world, I don't really get to see the joy out of it. So when I first read Pet Sematary, which I still test to the day is his scariest book, I read this as 15 years old, and I thought it was kind of frightening. I read it as an adult, as a parent of young children, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying in different ways than you expect. So this has the actual traditional horror, and it has like those real-life horrors that you might have to face as a parent one day. And it will completely gut punch you so many times. And if you saw that 2019 film adaptation, please wipe that from your memory because this is not it. This is spectacular. That movie was garbage. This will not only scare the pants off of you, but it might make you be scared to have children. So I'll just leave it there. It'll definitely make you scared to get a cat because, as we all know, cats are evil, right? If you want to stay scared, I talked before about YA. You have to have like 2 boxes checked, and one of those is a vampire. I missed the boat when vampires became sexy. I guess that was Can I really blame Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Because, full disclosure, guys, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think it is an amazing series. It is well written. It is all this stuff you see now about strong female lead. No, Buffy was a strong female lead because she was a well-developed character, and you sympathize with her, and you fought and you struggled along with her. And so I can't really trash on that so much. When the Twilight craze happened, it opened up this big, huge thing about vampires being sexy. And I was just like, I remember when vampires were freaking scary. And Stephen King even says he thinks this is the scariest book that he's ever written. And I'm a big fan of the Vampire Diaries, not the Vampire Diaries. Oh, God. Woof. No, I'm sorry. The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. At least I was up until about book 6 when it kind of fell off the rails. And I talked about that in that series that lost their way. But this was the first vampire book I think I ever read, really. And yeah, to the day, Barlow still kind of haunts my dreams. It's that well written. But this one might be tough for you as a first-time King reader because there are a multitude of characters. I mean, to a point where you'll almost feel like you need to make a flowchart. Not to the point of like needful things or something like that, but if you have a hard time, if you've read like Wheel of Time, you'll be fine. It's not like that many characters, but there's more than just your protagonist and like a sidekick or two. There are a ton of characters, and it basically goes through the life of this entire town as they're realizing that they've been taken over by vampires, and it's gripping in a way that none of that garbage YA stuff, vampire things have been ever. So, you like vampires that are scary? This is the one to get. Then, I guess what I'm moving towards now is, say you don't care about length. You don't care about any of that. You just want a good book. You don't care if it's, 400,000 words long. Well, you're in luck. You are in luck because not only does he hit the original, like I said, being I don't want to say the grandfather of dystopia, but definitely one of the ones who helped popularize it, because I'm sure that someone has written in the dystopian category long before it was even called dystopian. But what many argue is his best book is The Stand. And I find it hard to argue. I talked about it when I did the thing about the casting for the TV show, that this is an incredible book. Again, a ton of characters. So if that's hard for you, this might not be it. And, that length is crazy. It is crazy. This is the kind of book, and what I said in that video, I'm going to kind of repeat here, is that you have to treat it like you're not going to be reading anything else for a while. This is just going to be a journey that you're taking. Because if you start reading this book thinking, oh God, how long is this going to take me? You're not going to enjoy it. Okay? It's long, but it's never over long to the point where you're like, oh, I think that this can be good. In fact, the complete and uncut version actually added stuff to it that actually I thought made it much, much better. So to me, someone who's always wanted him to write a sequel to The Stand, so I know what happened to those characters at the end, I'm always willing to have more stands. Apparently, he's writing a new epilogue for the TV series. King is. So I guess that's the closest I'll ever get to my Stand sequel. I would really recommend against starting your King journey with The Stand for two reasons. One, it's a monumental task. And two, because it might ruin everything else for you afterwards. Because like I said, many argue that is his best book ever. I call it my second favorite book he's ever written. But yeah, it's kind of starting with, your debut album is a huge hit and then you're never able to follow it up after that. That's kind of what it would be like starting with that. The last one that I recommend, again, is kind of if you want to be scared and you don't care about size. And you guys know this. Everybody knows at this point. It is my favorite Stephen King novel. It has really become a pop culture phenomenon since the movies. The second movie not being as big a hit with audiences, or more critics than audiences. It seems like audiences like to find. That's kind of put a little ding on it, kind of took the wind out of its sails a little bit. But the success of that adaptation had opened the floodgates for movie studios and TV studios to say, oh, the Stephen King stuff's pretty good if we actually follow the source material. Let's just, go for it. And, you're going to have those cash grabs like you have with Pet Sematary. But then you're going to have those things like Dr. Sleep, which I'm going to see tomorrow, that apparently are very, very faithful to the source adaptation, but yet also faithful to Stanley Kubrick's movie. I don't know. We'll see. I trust Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan's amazing. He's a huge Stephen King fan. And, he gets King on a level that only him and then probably Frank Darabont, maybe Rob Reiner get King. No other filmmakers out there seem to get King, so I'm not worried about that. But back to it. Say you read The Body and you loved it, and you like that coming-of-age story, but you could use a little more scares. You want a villain a little more menacing than Ace Merrill. Pennywise is it, son. It's very, very, very long. You're going to hear me say that a lot of them. To me, I never thought The Stand or it were overly long. I've heard people say it's overly long, should have cut like 100, 200 pages out. I've never felt that. I connected with every character in it so much that I just wanted to keep going. I never wanted it to end. Same with The Stand. You had 20-ish main characters in The Stand, and I loved every one of them. That's just a talent that King has, is making you connect with his characters when the books get over long, is that it's because he's spending time developing these characters, and you feel like they become like your friends and family members and your brothers and sisters, and then sometimes a dark fate befalls them and it just crushes you. Or they have enormous success and you feel like you're just super excited for a friend or something. That's what makes his writing so wonderful to me. So I guess if I was going to recommend anything else, it'd probably just be Carrie, just because that's where I started. after I read it. Carrie's what I started. I went back and just said, I'm just going to read his entire, bibliography. So, yeah, you might. To me, I think that Carrie might be a little disjointed for you as a first-time reader, because you could tell he was still kind of finding his feet when he wrote that, and the whole rumors about his wife throwing it in the trash. Or I'm sorry, him throwing it in the trash and his wife retrieving it from the trash and getting him his book deal that eventually made him what he is today. You never know what would have happened if she had left that treatment in the trash. Don't know. So that's where I recommend you guys start. Try some of the shorter novellas first. I wouldn't recommend the short stories to start with, because they're like 13 to 15 pages, and I've talked about my problems with short stories before. But I think that's the best way if you want to get a couple of different genres. You got your horror, you got your dystopian, you've got your coming of age tales. And I think that those are the cream of the crop when it comes to those. You want to get into romance, and again, length doesn't matter. 11/22/63 is an emotionally powerful roller coaster that you will just be devastated when it's over. But again, I don't want to put 3 giant tomes in here telling you that these should be the first time that you dip into King. So that should be, again, if you're an experienced reader and length of novels don't bother you, that's when you go for it. If not, yeah, I definitely start with The Body or The Long Walk, or maybe even Pet Sematary if you want a little bit of chills there. So you guys read any of these? You guys interested in reading these? Do you have any recommendations to first-time King readers on what they should read? Hit me in the comments, guys. I'll talk to you there.